Now that I've gotten the background warp actually wound onto the back beam, I realized that I had not actually gotten the supplemental overshot completely done. So I am going to show you how I wind it onto the warping board so that I can actually make those lovely chains that we put on. Okay, this particular warping board was handmade. I did this years ago because my arms don't stretch very far. I'm small, I'm short, and I like to do this while I'm standing, but I can move this around. I can set this on the floor. I can set it on the floor in front of me while I'm watching TV or something like that. So I really like this warping board. It will do a grand total of 13 yards if I want it to. This particular one is 6.5. I was wrong. It's not 6 3/4. It's 6.5 yards long. So I'm going to start by simply tying a knot at the end, and I'm going to snip off the excess just so that we don't have a very, very long piece of string just standing there. And you'll notice that I've got a guide string all the way across. This helps me visualize where this yarn is going to go. This particular yarn is actually an 8/4 yarn, so this is twice as thick as the background warp. Just like in a regular overshot weave structure, you're still going to want your pattern yarn to be twice as thick. Some people will utilize the same yarn and simply double it, and that is totally fine. I happen to use a double thickness because I have a double thickness available for this particular yarn. So I need apparently 41 ends of the purple, and I need 6 ends of gold, and then another 41 ends of purple. So as you can see, I'm simply winding it on, and I'm pushing it to the end. I'm making sure that I've got the cross up here at the top so that I know which end is next. And yes, my hands do tend to be a little bit more nimble, and like I said, my warping board is absolutely amazing because it fits me perfectly. This is the exact right size. It's not a perfect distance between each of these, and that's why I've got them labeled. So it goes to 1 3/4 yards, 2 2/3 yards, over here to 3 1/4, 3 7/8, 4 1/2, 5 1/4, 5 2/3, 6 1/2. It's not perfect, but it really, really is the right size for me. If I were to do this over again, I would probably try to make the distance back and forth here at exactly half a yard if I could. When I made this warping board years ago, maybe 15, 16 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I needed pegs, and the pegs that I had in the warping board that I was borrowing were really shoddy. I didn't like them. I couldn't reach them, and it was annoying. So I made this one, and this has served me absolutely beautifully in the intervening years. And again, as I said, all I'm doing is I'm just going back and forth and measuring the warp up and down. I'll push it backwards. I need, what did I say, 41 ends. So as I hit the 20 end mark, I'm going to stop and I'm going to mark that. Nice part about this is when you get to this point, and I don't know if I'm at that point, I've been talking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so I'm not quite there. I can simply wind my chain or wind my yarn around one of these pegs, and that holds the tension on. You don't want a whole lot of tension. A whole lot of tension. But you do want to make sure that you're keeping this tight enough that it's not going to get all floppy. You want to be able to move it a little bit, but you don't want it to sag. Okay? When they sag, that's when we start to have problems winding on, and you'll end up with more tangles in your warp chain when you're putting it onto the loom. If you let the tension down. So I need 5 more. 4 more for 20. 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and like I said, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of wrap this around a couple of these pegs down here just to keep a little bit of tension. I'm going to push these all to the back, like so. And then, because I've got the purple here, I'm actually going to take a piece of the gold yarn. You use a lot of individual pieces of yarn. So as you can see in the background, I've got a nice big yarn tree to hold all of my yarn. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to move the tracing line out of the way. And I'm just going to loop this through like this. I'm not going to pull it all the way through. I'm just looping it through. And that's my counter. That tells me I have 20 ends on here. So I'm going to continue this up. I'm going to do 41 ends of the purple. I'm going to do 6 ends of gold. I'm going to do another 41 of the purple. And that way you can see, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I take the chain off of the warping board. Now that I have wound on all of the center supplemental weave, I need to tie it off and chain it so that we can put it onto the loom. This is the center part of the supplemental. I'm going to do the other 2 chains in a moment, but for right now, this is how I tie this off and chain it. Simple fabric. I've simply cut pieces of fabric. It's not a big deal. I like the fabric rather than using a smaller piece of string because it's wider, it's easier to see when I put it on the loom, and it's much easier to be able to take it off and not worry about it. I also do loops rather than tying knots or anything like that because that makes it easy to just pull on the end and undo it. Now, I am going to tie off at the top, on the top part of each side. See, and I just made a knot, and I don't want that knot. I'm going to tie off on each side of the cross with the loop. You want to keep this cross, remember, because we're going to use our least sticks in between those. And then, and you'll notice I did not tie the guide string. We're going to leave that guide string alone. Same thing here. Leave the guide string alone, and I'm going to tie off in a small loop down here to mark the actual end. This is the end that is going to be over here on the back end of the loom that my rod will go through, so that I don't have to tie onto the back beam. I just simply slide the rod through and it winds it all on. Some people will also do an additional bout here, an additional bout here, just to keep it from tangling as you chain it or unchain it. I don't seem to have that issue, but your mileage may vary. Feel free, there is no right or wrong way to do any of this, as I'm pretty sure you have heard me say a number of times before. Notice that I keep my fingers through this part right here, and that is because I'm going to put my arm through that, reach through and grab a piece. I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to do the same thing here. This is just like you are crocheting. It's a crochet chain, only you're going to do it by hand. Okay? I'm keeping tension on it. See how it loosens up? I'm trying to keep tension on this enough so that it does not fall off of the pegs while I am chaining it. I need to put some more gummy stuff on the bottom of my wood here so that it doesn't slide around so much. That tells you how much tension I'm putting on it. All right. So again, remember I've got 41 purple, 5 gold, I miscounted earlier, sorry, 5 gold, and another 41 purple for the supplemental warp that's going on this supplemental overshot. Okay, now that I'm up at the top, I'm going to grab this here. I'm going to grab the end here, and I'm going to pull the whole thing off, and then give it a good tug to straighten that out, because we had this big cross there. I give it a tug to straighten out. Some looms don't have an extra part there to separate it out so nicely, so they'll have 2 chains here or 2 pegs here so that you can simply do the cross like right there. I don't like that. I like to have it open. Now that I've still got this, pull it through, and then you can actually tie that off, and I'll use a different color. Do the same thing, tie that, just like so, and then your chain, nice chain, this is why they call it a chain, will not come apart. Let me fold down this for you so that you can then see. I'm going to come back over here, and all I'm going to do is loop that right on through and over the back. Okay? This is going to end up over top here. And we're going to actually put it over top on this piece right there. And that's where that just slides right on in. Okay, so that keeps the two separated for the supplemental warp.